Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. And Will Robinson Smith will be performing our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Our Stephen Young is running the technical operations of the broadcast tonight, and our photographers, Adam Bernstein and Michael Kane, have the evening off, of course, since this is a West Coast venture we have on hand. We're currently T-minus 29 minutes, 16 seconds and counting towards the launch of OneWeb launch number 20. This is the final batch of Gen 1 satellites rounding out this era of the OneWeb satellite internet constellation. 20 OneWeb satellites are on board the Falcon 9 rocket getting ready to lift off. Launch time currently set for 10:13 p.m. Pacific, 1:13 a.m. Eastern, 05:13 UTC. We do have word that SpaceX has begun fueling its Falcon 9 rocket, which means they are committing to at least making a run at launching coming up in just a little under 30 minutes from now. As we're getting things rolling, I want to thank the little more than 1,900 of you who are joining with us live this late evening there on the West Coast. I suppose technically very early morning here on the East Coast, cruising into 1 o'clock here from where I'm sitting. Hope you all have had a good start to the weekend and are doing something fun with your Sunday as you get ready to close out the weekend, head into another hopefully productive and invigorating work or school week coming up right around the corner. We're glad to see you tonight. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy our launch commentary and hopefully the sights of a Falcon 9 rocket taking flight from Vandenberg Space Force Base, lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East, or SLIC 4E. Tonight's launch, notable, of course, this is also the 100th orbital flight for SpaceX, using its Falcon family of rockets. With the launch of this Falcon 9 tonight, they will have lifted off again 100 times with the Falcon vehicle. There have been 2 Falcon Heavy rockets, and this will make Falcon 9 number 98. So we're getting things going here. If you haven't already, be sure to click that like button for us. That'll allow the YouTube algorithm to recognize that folks are here and engaged, bring some more friends on in for the duration of our coverage. I also want to thank your wonderful moderators in the live chat. I see Callistia Lee, Astro Joe here. Astro Jen joined us for our launch last night, but we'll keep our eyes out for the other mods. Aussie Space Girl joining with us this evening as well. Hello to you. Be sure to do us a favor and help our mods out. Remember, quick way to get your comments blocked is if you're using all caps. If you're overtly rude to our other channel members and guests here in the live chat, and also if you stray into overtly political realms, those are quick and easy ways to get your comments deleted. And as much as we want to keep this as an open and clear forum, we do ask that you respect our policies. But other than that, enjoy your time in the live chat. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves about space-related things, family, other hobbies and interests. But again, just be respectful of one another. And remember, everyone's launch tonight could be their first. So treat them with the same grace that you would like to be treated if this was your first time. Speaking of our supporters, we have a wonderful channel member community, of course, here on YouTube supporting us. So thanks to folks like Jeff Hansen, Hyro, Mike, the Rocket Girl, Francis Tabor, Patty Chichil, I am Lita, KH, Roddy Mom 12, many others. Sulfur for lunch. Good evening to you. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop. That is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, and of course, the ability to watch all of our launch liftoff moments from the Cape in 4K. Last bit of housekeeping here. If you have a comment or question specifically about this mission or other happenings in the realm of space, or if you just like to offer a little support tonight, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. And if you do have a comment to pass along, not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about during the duration of the countdown, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that is always very much appreciated. It's been a busy week from Sunday to now, as of course we had the launch of Starship Flight 5, a Falcon Heavy rocket, already 3 Falcon 9 launches, and we're looking for our 4th one going up here now, just about 24 minutes. Did post up a Starship Flight 5 wrap-up overview video up on the channel if you haven't already had a chance to check that out. That's up for your viewing convenience. Our 4K launch replay will be hitting the YouTube channel tomorrow morning, right about the time when Starship took flight back now just a week ago. So be sure to pop back on in tomorrow at your leisure or whenever is convenient for you, and our 4K replay will be there waiting. Turning our attention to tonight's launch again, this is the final batch of Gen 1 OneWeb satellites. This is also the first time that these satellites are launching as part of what is now Eutelsat Group. OneWeb did combine with the company called Eutelsat, and now they are one joint entity. This is the mission patch for today's flight, symbolizing the combination of the two forces, using their satellites to connect in both low Earth orbit and geostationary orbit. On board the Falcon 9 rocket are these 20 Gen 1 OneWeb satellites that were actually built not too far from where we're broadcasting this evening. The Airbus OneWeb satellites manufacturing facility is located on Merritt Island. If you're in the area and have ever gone to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, it's actually just down the road from that. If you recall, from the entrance of the Visitor Complex, there's the big Blue Origin campus. If you're coming out of Visitor Complex and go to your left down that road that curves towards State Road 3, you'll pass by the Airbus OneWeb satellite manufacturing facility there on the left-hand side of your road. And that has been your Florida tour guide moment for the night. Basic bus that these satellites are built off of have some versatility to them. So even though these Gen 1 satellites no longer being manufactured, they do have the ability to build off of them for other satellite projects, though OneWeb hasn't made, to my recollection, any announcements on what the future of the production line will be there at Merritt Island. Currently T minus 19 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. this month, the Vandenberg Space Force Base, where this Falcon 9 will fly from, celebrated its 76th anniversary. Back in October of 1958, what was then Cook Air Force Base was redesignated as Vandenberg Air Force Base, according to the base's history. This was done in honor of the late General Hoyt S. Vandenberg, the second Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force. Fast forward to May 14th of 2021, Vandenberg Air Force Base renamed to Vandenberg Space Force Base. And the launch of Landsat 9 back in September of 2021 marked the 2000th launch from Vandenberg. Lots of history at this particular launch site, of course, and this Falcon 9 rocket looking to add its own little piece of history, lifting off in a little less than 19 minutes now. Taking a look at the live chat, I want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Our thanks to Michelle Penland for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Michelle. I want to welcome Julie Willison to channel membership at the pad leader level. Glad to have you with us, Julie. Thanks as well to Losos DLBKH for a $10 super chat. Thank you, Losos. James Castile, good to see you this evening. Appreciate the $12 super chat. And thanks as well to Reed Drummond for a $5 super chat. Thank you for supporting us tonight. Now, T-minus 17 minutes, 51 seconds and counting. Let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline and some of the events that we've already passed through and what's still out ahead of us. I will note as we step through this countdown timeline that the weather down at Vandenberg is pretty pristine, with really no clouds to speak of in the area in the vicinity. You're taking a look at the GOES West satellite map, looking down at Vandenberg, and fortunately it's both not cloudy high up and also not foggy down below, so visibility for folks in the vicinity and some of the southwestern states should get a pretty good show, though it looks like there's some clouds over there just beyond the eastern border of California. So perhaps not the most ideal viewing, but hopefully a lot of folks will get a pretty good show tonight. Coming back to the countdown timeline, of course, with fueling already underway, we've passed a number of these milestones, so we'll step through this pretty quickly. The launch director gave the go for prop load. Fueling began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. Liquid oxygen began flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage at that time as well. T-minus 30 minutes is when cryogenic helium began flowing on board the pressure vessels on the Falcon 9's first stage. Same was true on the second stage about 5 minutes later. This helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes, loading of second stage kerosene concluded. T-minus 20 minutes, 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process began. That's when they start chilling the feed lines prior to second stage LOX load. You see that visually as the big vent right about T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. Milestone we just hit about 15 seconds ago was second stage LOX load beginning. Milestones still to come. We have the chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the Falcon 9's first stage. That involves filling a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes before liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. T-minus 4 minutes, 30 seconds, the strong back retract sequence begins. It starts with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings opening up, and then here at Vandenberg, the transporter erector with a strong back reclines about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stays in that position until liftoff. 3 minutes before liftoff, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. LOX tank wraps up filling on the second stage at about T-minus 2 minutes, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. The final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought to flight pressure. We'll hear that call out as the Falcon 9 being in startup. T-minus 45 seconds, the SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch. Engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 for a T0 liftoff. Coming up at 10:13 p.m. Pacific, 1:13 a.m. Eastern, 5:13 UTC, or in 14 minutes. It's 5 seconds. Briefly here, because looks like we're going to get some views of the Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and touch on the trajectory for tonight's flight. Taking a look at a satellite view of Vandenberg Space Force Base, flipping our orientation, looking now southward. And that's the direction that this Falcon 9 is going to be flying, pretty much due south once it leaves the pad. As you can see from the red pathway, though, that is the trajectory of the first stage booster, tail number 1082 in the SpaceX fleet. It's going to be performing a flip maneuver, the old boost back burn, heading back towards a landing at landing zone 4. If successful, this will be the 21st landing at LZ4. Should be getting some views of the Falcon 9 rocket fairly soon here. We'll note, though, that SpaceX does intend to recover the payload fairings on this flight as well. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort. And they're working towards getting these both boosters and the payload fairings certified for up to 40 flights. SpaceX has not said how many flights the payload fairings have flown so far on this mission, but this booster is making its 7th launch today. The payload fairings, of course, will be scooped up and brought aboard a recovery vessel like the one you see here on your screen. As we're waiting for reviews of the Falcon 9 rocket, now T-minus 12 minutes, 8 seconds counting. Let's quickly step through the booster history on B-1082. Again, making its 7th flight tonight. It first flew on a Starlink mission. Those were its first 2 missions, actually. Starlink 7-9 on January 3rd of this year, followed up by 7-14 on February 15th. Launch number 3 was dubbed USSF, or United States Space Force number 62, lifted off on April 11th. The payload on board this was the Weather System follow-on microwave satellite, the first for that particular program. Then the most recent launches were back to Starlinks. Those were Starlink 8-2 on May 10th, Starlink 9-1 on June 19th, and Starlink 11-1 on August 4th. We're now T-minus 10 minutes, 18 seconds and counting. Taking a quick look at the live chat. Want to thank Blackfin. Welcome Blackfin in, joining us at the pad leader level of channel membership. Also want to thank the Brad Marks channel for a $2 super chat. Thank you, Brad. And Jones Family Ranch for a $10 super chat as well. And now we have our reviews of the Falcon 9 rocket. And as you can see, a very clear night down there at Vandenberg. According to the SpaceX commentator, as you could probably guess from these views here, the weather is still green for launch tonight, and all is healthy on the vehicle and with the satellites as well. Now currently T minus 9 minutes, 18 seconds and counting. This is a promo video from the Eutelsat group regarding the company. Again, they combined the two that you see there, Eutelsat and OneWeb, just about a year ago this month. The animation of the 20 satellites that are going to be deployed on this mission. I guess this is an old animation from when they launched batches of 40 satellites, because that looks like a lot more than just the 20 that are flying on this particular flight. For those who actually visit the Airbus OneWeb satellites manufacturing facility down there at Merritt Island, they actually have a model of one of those satellites hanging out in the lobby, which is pretty nifty. Now T minus 8 minutes and counting. We're about a minute away from the engine chill down sequence getting underway. Those just popping in. That involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps to help protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. Taking a look at our live chat here, want to briefly thank John Sawyer for a $10 super chat. Thank you, John. Giving his wife a shout out, Cindy Sawyer, who says, I hope you enjoy the launch. Happy viewing to you, Cindy. Getting an overview here of the Falcon 9 rocket. Call out for engine chill just now. Payload fairings at the top of the rocket here, going down from top to bottom. Just hearing from the SpaceX commentator that they're flying the short nozzle on this particular flight today, which does also help reduce the cost of this flight. Payload fairings stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall. They're 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The Merlin vacuum engine on the Falcon 9's second stage is designed to produce more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired twice before the beginning of the deployment sequence for the 20 OneWeb satellites. Just beneath the second stage, the inner stage, this is a composite structure which consists of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. It has deployable hypersonic grid fins that provide stability and steering that help guide the first stage as it makes its way back down towards landing zone 4. Taking a look here up at the second stage, and of course the payload fairings at the top of the rocket. We're about 30-ish seconds away from the strong back retract sequence. Call for pressurization for a strong back retract. In just a few seconds, you'll start to see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings opening up. And then the transporter erector with a strong back will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. There you see those clamp arms opening up. So far, things are progressing very smoothly with tonight's countdown. No technical issues to speak of on either the Falcon 9 rocket or the payload. As we're watching the transporter erector lean back away from the Falcon 9 rocket, do want to thank a few more folks for their support this evening. Our thanks to 7 Dennis 123 for a $2 super chat. Thank you, 7 Dennis. The message of support for Elon Musk. Blue Collar 909 with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Blue Collar. Cindy responding to her husband John with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Cindy. Giving a shout out to husband John and their 5 kids, Hope, Faith, Noah, Luke, and Grace. Good evening to you all. And a thanks to Mindy Ellinger for a $2 super chat. We're coming up on the first stage LOX tank.
Load is complete.
Do you hear the call out for stage 1 LOX load? The next milestone we're looking for is for second stage LOX load to wrap up. And that will finish off fueling. Let's listen in for a second stage prop load call.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that good call, the Falcon 9 is now fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. As we come into this final minute and a half, do want to thank the now 23,000 of you who are with us this evening. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button. Allow some folks to find this live coverage in the last little minute we have before liftoff of this rocket. Did you see the ground gas closeouts performed there? We'll come back to the live chat on the other side of liftoff, but for now, with just a minute to go, let's go ahead and focus in on the Falcon 9 rocket for this remaining 60 seconds. Good call. The Falcon 9 is in startup.
For launch.
The launcher.
And with that call that we are go for launch, we are now just a little more than 30 seconds away. Let's go ahead and listen in for the final countdown, and we'll come back on the other side with some additional commentary.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9, go OneWeb 4.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
So at T plus 33 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 4E at Vandenberg, carrying the 20 Eutelsat OneWeb satellites. During ascent, we tilt or gimbal the engines to turn the rocket horizontally into what we call a gravity turn, to put the rocket on its path to orbit. And moments ago, we throttled the engines down in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure,
Vehicle is supersonic.
which is coming up in a few seconds.
Max Q.
So we just had max Q, and the rocket typically needs to go 28,000 kilometers per hour, or about 17,500 miles per hour, horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth by gravity and get into orbit. Now we have five events coming up in quick succession. MECO, stage SEP, SES-1, and boost back burn, which starts bringing the first stage back to the launch site, and then fairing deployment, when the fairing halves will separate from the second stage. So we have MECO in about 30 seconds from now.
A little more than 2 minutes into flight. So far, a very smooth mission and some excellent tracking camera views here from SpaceX. Coming up on a few different events here. See engine cutoff.
And back ignition. Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there you heard and maybe even saw MECO, stage SEP, SES-1, and the start of boost back burn, which will last for just under 1 minute. We have some really awesome views on screen right now.
And hopefully some of you on the ground are seeing those stellar views as the boost back burn is performed. If you're in the vicinity of Vandenberg, also let us know if you're hearing the sonic boom when it happens. You see those OneWeb satellites there. The fairing is now separated, exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time. Again, these are the final Gen 1 OneWeb satellites built right here in Florida, deploying into low Earth orbit just about an hour from now. Call for stage 1 boost back shutdown. Coming up, the next milestone will be the first stage entry burn beginning. LZ4 is about 1,400 feet or so away from Slick 4 East. Coming up on the 4th minute into flight. Once the entry burn starts, that burn set to last for about 15 seconds. That'll dramatically slow the vehicle down and set up for the landing burn to begin at roughly T plus 7 minutes, 18 seconds, with a landing just before the 8-minute mark in the flight. taking a look at our live chat here, looks like a lot of folks can actually see the burns that have been happening so far. Some good visibility on this launch, which is great to hear. A little more than 5 minutes into flight. We're now less than a minute away from the start of the first stage entry burn beginning. We're now a little less than 20 seconds away from the start of the first stage entry burn beginning. Let's go ahead and listen in for that call out.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Good call for the start of that entry burn. Now getting some views of that first stage booster back. Again, this burn lasting roughly 15 or so seconds in total. You can see the speed of the first stage booster, tail number B1082, dropping dramatically as that entry burn now concluding. Coming up next will be the start of the landing burn. We're just a little more, or landing burn should be starting here in less than 30 seconds. Starting to see, as Steve was just mentioning in my ear, the lights of Southern California coming into view.
Good call outs there, where Falcon 9 is slowing, the stage 1 is slowing down. Landing burn should be coming up shortly.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there we have the
Stage 2 is
landing
in terminal
burn,
guidance.
where engine 9 has relit right before touching down on the landings at landing zone 4.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you have it. That landing
Stage
marks
2 FPS
SpaceX's
update.
357th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy.
As the commentator was speaking just there, it was a little bit muffled because he sounds like the mics were brought down a bit, but you could just barely make out the sonic boom as that first stage booster made its landing. But successful 7th landing of B1082. Good call there of nominal orbit insertion. Got some views back here of the Gen 1 OneWeb satellites. At this point, the Falcon 9 second stage is in its cruise phase, getting ready to start the deployment sequence after a second burn of that Merlin vacuum engine. That second burn set to begin at about T plus 55 minutes, 3 seconds. That'll help to circularize the orbit. After that 3-second burn, then the deployment sequence will begin with the first 2 OneWeb satellites starting at T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds. The final pair being deployed at about T plus 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 53 seconds. So far, a very successful start to the mission here as this final chapter in the Gen 1 saga for OneWeb is, well, now well underway. As the upper stage continues on in its coast phase, let's go ahead and take a look back here at our live chat. Thank a few more folks for their support as we're tracking the progress of the upper stage with the telemetry data you see here on your screen. Now about T plus 10 minutes, 33 seconds into flight. I want to welcome Karen Rash joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Appreciate that, Karen. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Pre-existing channel member Pierce Mama with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Mama, for saying as well. Thanks for the great coverage, as always. The Kaiser 2023 with a $5 super chat saying let's go SpaceX and Elon Musk. Thank you for your support this evening. Casey by Stealth with a $2 super chat saying shout out to Steve N. Let's witness the launch. Thank you, Casey. Red Sky with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Red Sky. Sailing the Sky with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Sailing. It says, I saw something that looked like a rocket flying to my south from New England yesterday. Was that another SpaceX launch? Yeah, Sailing, what you saw may have been the most recent Starlink launch, which lifted off from the Cape yesterday. That was the Starlink 8-19 mission, which launched at 7:31 p.m. Eastern. So if it was a few minutes after that, you might have been able to see it from as far north as New England if the lighting conditions were right. Patty Chichil, another one of our wonderful channel members with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Patty. Says absolutely 100. Best coverage, Spaceflight Now, mods, and the peeps. I'm Lita with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Lita. Good to see you this evening. Who says, hello, Will, team, mods, and Spaceflight Now family. Great night for a launch. Appreciate all you do. Well, thank you for helping support what we do, Lita. Dominic Saraceno with a $2 super chat. Appreciate that, Dominic. Stop Pot with a $5 super chat as well. Thank you, Stop. Back again with another $2 super chat saying hello from Lompoc, California. Cynthia Graves with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Cynthia. Saying thanks. Sailing the Sky back with another $10 super chat. Thank you, Sailing. Saying after 59 minutes, will this be viewable from America, let alone the East Coast? This launch is not visible from the East Coast, the one we just saw lift off. S-Bell with a $5 super chat. Thank you, S-Bell. Stephen Remy with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Stephen. Saying excellent coverage. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sailing the Sky back one more time, saying they got some video of the launch yesterday, which is very cool. If you post it up on X, be sure to tag us. Love to see that. You can find us just by looking up Spaceflight Now. And Jeff Brewski with the $2 super chat. Thank you, Jeff. Robert Valdivia with $2 super chats, and go SpaceX from Los Angeles. We now currently T plus 14 minutes, 58 seconds and counting. Again, SpaceX is currently in a coast phase with its Falcon 9 upper stage. It's going to last for some time here, about 40-ish minutes. The ignition of the second stage for a second time comes up at T plus 55 minutes, 3 seconds. There will be a brief 3-second burn, and that'll set things up for the deployment sequence to begin, starting with the first pair of OneWeb satellites leaving the upper stage at T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds, and the final pair deploying at T plus 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 53 seconds. Now currently T plus 26 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. Continue to track the path of the Falcon 9 upper stage as it is approaching Antarctica. See the tip of South America off on the right-hand side of the globe here. So far, all moving along nominally with the mission so far. Again, we're looking for the deployment sequence to begin on the Falcon 9 upper stage with the first two OneWeb satellites being deployed at around T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds. That's following a second burn of the upper stage engine. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank a few folks for your support tonight. I want to thank Sulfur for Lunch, one of our wonderful channel members, for a 50 SEK super chat. Thank you, Sulfur. Mets fan with a $5 super chat saying Cape Canaveral is the best. Might be a little biased on that one, but might have to agree with you. Larry Williams with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Larry. Kimberly Fallis joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Kimberly. Glad to have you with us. That Monkey with a $5 super chat. Appreciate you saying great launch. Now, how much is the next flight off this planet? Maybe you can send Jared Isaacman a note and see if he can get on the next Polaris mission. Lauren Seals with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Lauren, who says thank you for always the great coverage. LOL Play with a dollar or a euro super chat. Thank you, LOL. PSN with a $2 super chat asking if they'll be able to see it from Los Angeles. Well, unfortunately, PSN, the launch already happened, but you can catch a replay where we're working to wind the clock back and be able to show you a launch replay here in just a couple of minutes. We're got that in work behind the scenes. Mary Ann Dahlstrom with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Mary Ann. Appreciate your support tonight. Ron Alsop with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Ron. And Bill C's channel with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Bill. Asking if we can replay the launch. And yes, we are getting that worked on right now. And we'll let you know when that launch replay is ready. Actually, I think do have the replay ready. So again, for those just joining in, this is a replay of the OneWeb Launch 20 liftoff and heading into the beginnings of its flight. Final countdown, and we'll come back on the other side with some additional commentary.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition. And lift off the Falcon 9. Go OneWeb 4.
Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
So at T plus 33 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 4E at Vandenberg, carrying the 20 Eutelsat OneWeb satellites. During ascent, we tilt or gimbal the engines to turn the rocket horizontally into what we call a gravity turn, to put the rocket on its path to orbit. And moments ago, we throttled the engines down in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure,
Vehicle is supersonic.
which is coming up in a few seconds.
Max Q.
So we just had max Q, and the rocket typically needs to go 28,000 kilometers per hour, or about 17,500 miles per hour, horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth by gravity and get into orbit. Now we have five events coming up in quick succession. MECO, stage sep, SES-1, and boost back burn, which starts bringing the first stage back to the launch site, and then fairing deployment, when the fairing halves will separate from the second stage. So we have MECO in about 30 seconds from now.
And again, for those just joining in, you're watching a live launch replay of the OneWeb 20 mission. That's what's in the big box right here on the left-hand side of your screen. The live telemetry data that's happening in real time is in the vertical box on the right. We're currently T plus 33 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. As you can see, the second stage now passing over Antarctica. This mission flying the so-called stubby nozzle there, or the short nozzle on the Falcon 9 second stage. An option for SpaceX when they don't need their longer nozzle, which provides a little more oomph on that second stage for either larger payloads or more dynamic burns of the second stage. And it's a notable cost savings for them as well if they're able to use the short nozzle. Here's a view of the OneWeb Gen 1 satellites as we saw the payload fairings being deployed. We should hopefully be getting views of those satellites once again during the deployment sequence, as the connectivity with ground stations is able to permit that. For those just joining in, you're watching the live coverage of the OneWeb 20 mission, the final Gen 1 satellites for the Eutelsat Group's OneWeb internet constellation. In the big box, you're seeing a launch replay of the mission as it began. This point, about 6.5 minutes into the flight. In the vertical box on the right-hand side of your screen, that is the live telemetry data of the Falcon 9 upper stage as it continues on during its coast phase. Now T plus 38 minutes, 22 seconds in flight in real time, cruising over Antarctica. Now just about 20-ish minutes, a little less than 20 minutes now from the burn of the upper stage engine for a second time, helping to circularize the orbit. That 3-second burn before the deployment sequence begins at T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds.
Stage 1, landing confirmed.
And there you have it. That landing
Stage
marks
2 FTS
SpaceX's
update.
357th recovery of an orbital-class rocket, including first-stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy.
Now T plus 50 minutes, 26 seconds and counting. Starting to get our views back of the Falcon 9 upper stage as we're approaching the second and final burn of the upper stage engine prior to the deployment sequence beginning. It's either the short nozzle on the upper stage that will come back to life at roughly T plus 55 minutes, 3 seconds for a roughly 3 second burn. So we're a little less than 5 minutes away from the start of that part of this mission. Now T plus 52 minutes, 39 seconds and counting. Upper stage about to pass over island of Madagascar. Believe the upper stage is connecting with the ground station there at Hartbeespoort in South Africa. As we're awaiting the second burn of the upper stage, taking a look at the live chat here, I want to thank a couple of folks for their support this evening. Thanks to T Meadows for a $2 super chat. Thank you, T, who says, thanks, Space Light Now. Good job like normal. And a thanks as well to Steven for a $10 super chat. Appreciate your support this evening, Steven. Now T plus 53 minutes, 29 seconds and counting. Just a couple minutes away from that upper stage engine burn. We're coming up on that second burn for the Merlin vacuum engine. Let's go ahead and listen for that call out. While we didn't hear hear the call out for the burn. We did just hear a call for nominal orbit insertion. We are now just a few minutes away from the start of the deployment sequence, which will begin at about T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds. The full deployment sequence will take less than 20 minutes in total, ending just before 1 hour, 19 minutes into flight. There you see a view of those OneWeb Gen 1 satellites. During the height of the manufacturing of the Gen 1 satellites, the plant was able to complete them at a rate of about 2 per day. So the satellite manufacturing process down there at the Airbus OneWeb satellite facility on Merritt Island, able to get these buses through at a fairly decent clip. The deployment sequence for these 10 OneWeb Generation 1 satellites will happen, the release will happen 2 at a time, but they're going to happen in about 2 different waves. The first set of 10 will go between T plus 59 minutes, 3 seconds through about T plus 1 hour, 2 minutes, 13 seconds. And there will be about a 10-minute pause before the final 10 satellites on board will start their deployment sequence. We're now about 30 seconds or less away from the first 2 satellites being deployed. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Sat A4 and A8 have been deployed.
So we just had deployment of the first 2 satellites of this batch of 10. And the next 2 will be deployed in about 30 seconds from now.
Sat A3 and A7 have been deployed.
Good call out there for the next pair that have just deployed. So far we have deployed 4 out of the 10 satellites in this first payload deployment, and we're waiting
Sat
for...
A2 and A6 have been deployed.
And there we just heard the next pair have been deployed, so there's 4 more remaining.
Sat A1 and Sat A5 have been deployed.
Another good call out there. So there are 2 more satellites that remain to be deployed in this initial set of 10. They should be deploying in about a minute.
Sat B4 and B8 have been deployed.
And great call outs there. So we've now deployed 10 out of the 20 satellites, and we now have a second roughly 10-minute coast phase, which we're going to take another short break for. And after the coast phase, we'll be back to deploy the remaining 10 satellites just after the T plus 1 hour and 12-minute mark. So we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.
We're now at T plus 1 hour, 11 minutes, 35 seconds and counting. We're coming up on the start of the final 10 satellites being deployed. The next pair, satellites 11 and 12, set to depart from the Falcon 9 upper stage, beginning at about 1 hour, 12 minutes, 43 seconds into this flight. Seeing the Falcon 9 upper stage passing over the Middle East there. Hopefully we'll get some views from ground stations so we can actually see the deployment happening. Set to pick up here in less than 20 seconds. Let's go ahead and listen back into the deployment sequence. Here it has it happens. Hopefully we'll get some visuals as well.
So even though we don't have views of satellite deployment yet, we will still get confirmation over the nets until we regain camera views. So we are currently standing by for those callouts, and we will share them as soon as we hear them. We should be coming up on signal acquisition shortly.
OT plus 1 hour, 16 minutes, 19 seconds and counting. Should be hitting the second pair in the
Sat
second
B1
set.
and B5 separation confirmed.
good callouts there for the first 2 of this batch of 10.
Sat B2 and B6 separation confirmed.
And a great view of that pair deploying. So far we've now deployed a total of 14 of the 20 satellites aboard today's mission. We have an awesome view on our screen right now, but even if we lose views of satellite deployment, we will still continue to get confirmation.
Sat C1 and C5 separation confirmed.
And another 2 have deployed, and we got an awesome view of that deployment as well. So now there are 4 more satellites that remain to be deployed, and we have successfully deployed 16 out of the 20 so far. The satellites that you see on your screen right now were built by
Sat B3 and B7 separation confirmed.
another successful deployment of 2 more satellites. These satellites were built by Airbus US Space and Defense in Merritt Island, Florida. And so now there are the final 2 satellites that remain to be deployed from the set of 20.
Sat C3 and C7 separation confirmed.
So with the final 2 on their way, we can confirm successful
All payloads
deployment.
deployed.
We can now confirm successful deployment of all 20 spacecraft on today's mission. And that wraps up our coverage for today. Today's launch concludes our 99th successful launch this year and our 394th overall. All of us here at SpaceX want to give a huge thanks to our customer, Eutelsat Group, for entrusting us with today's mission.
And with a good deployment of the final satellites for the Gen 1 part of the OneWeb constellation, let's go ahead and turn now to our mission stats for this launch of OneWeb, launch number 20. go ahead and get those mission stats ready here and talk about where things stand from SpaceX. And we'll let you know what's on the horizon for the company as well, looking toward the future. This mission represented the 7th flight of booster 1082. This was the 383rd Falcon 9 launch to date, the 98th Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was the 328th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 103rd launch of 2024. Despite what you heard from the SpaceX commentator, this was actually their 100th orbital launch of the year. It appears though SpaceX is not counting their failure of an orbital launch where the payload was not deployed correctly. However, it was still an orbital flight, so we still count it in our statistics here. So with 98 Falcon 9 launches, 2 Falcon Heavies, and the 3 Starship flights, that's where I get the 103. This was the 122nd orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 94th SpaceX orbital launch from Slick 4 East, and the 162nd overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 21st landing at LZ4, Landing Zone 4, marking the 77th SpaceX land landing and the 356th Falcon booster landing so far. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 35th orbital launch from the Golden State, California, the 107th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 117th orbital launch from U.S. rocket company, and the 190th orbital launch from around the world. 6 launch mishaps so far on the year. Here's where the pie chart currently stands. U.S. holding 62% of the pie. China with a solid quarter with its 48 launches this year so far. Russia with its 11 has 6% of the pie. Japan has notched 5 launches so far. India and Iran with 3 apiece. The European Space Agency with 2. And North Korea with 1 orbital launch attempt that ended in failure. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our live coverage of this mission tonight. Want to briefly thank Yellow for a $1 super chat. Appreciate you, Yellow. And Waco Jones for a $2 super chat. Thanks to you as well. Looking into the future of launch, we are tracking the upcoming launch of the Starlink 6-61 mission, set to be our next Falcon flight, lifting off from Pad 40 with a window opening at 6:40 p.m. Eastern on Monday, the 21st. Also keeping our eyes down in New Zealand for whenever Rocket Lab is able to reschedule their changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes mission for a, quote, confidential commercial customer. So a couple of missions on the horizon here. Want to thank everyone for their time and attention tonight. A big thanks to our wonderful moderators, Callistia Lee, Aussie Space Girl, and Astro Joe for helping us out in the live chat this evening. Thanks as always to our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube for powering us and keeping us in business, allowing us to bring you robust coverage of these live launch attempts as well as other happenings in the realm of space. Our thanks, as always, to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Most of all, thanks to you for wherever you are joining us this fine overnight hours here in the United States for the launch of the OneWeb 20 mission, the final batch of the Gen 1 OneWeb satellites on behalf of the company Eutelsat Group. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, We will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.